Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Carly and I'm a twin mom to Everett and Amelia via IVF. So on my channel I have a lot of day in the life videos just hanging out with us and my husband, and then also I go over just mom things and a little bit of IVF, fertility stuff, and pregnancy as well. So if that interests you, please go ahead and subscribe. I'd love to continue connecting with you and hanging out. And then if you end up liking this video, give us a thumbs up. It really helps us out. So we greatly appreciate that as well. So in today's video, I wanted to go over my entire experience breastfeeding the twins. I have made it almost a year. They are 11 months old and the year mark was my goal, so I'm super excited and super happy. And I wanted to give back to anybody that is looking for information. If you're pregnant with twins or you're a first time mom and you're going to start nursing even just one singleton baby, I wanted to just give you my experience and kind of prep you a little bit, I guess, or just give you some information on what to expect. There's lots of information out there about breastfeeding, but what I found was a lot of friends and family that I talked to, they were at the end of it like this, and they kind of forgot how hard it is at the beginning, or at least maybe they just didn't want to scare me. So I am going to give you all the nitty-gritty details. I'm not a super shy person, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Don't think that you're going to offend me by any means or anything like that. I'm an open book, so feel free to comment down below and ask any questions that you have. I'm gonna make this actually like a two-part series so that it's not a super long-winded video. And this first video, I'm just going to go over like my experience and, you know, just kind of talk about that. And then in the next video, I will show everything I used for breastfeeding and all the random stuff that I ended up having to buy that I did not think about in the beginning or didn't get enough of or whatever. So here I'm just going to be talking and hopefully not be too boring for you. And then the next video, I'm going to show all of the things. In the hospital, right after having the babies, they gave me the babies and they wanted me to do skin to skin and try nursing right away. So this part was really crazy and interesting for my husband to see because we had twins, right? So they actually just like laid the babies on you, and I had a C-section. So I was completely laid back, and when they tried to prop me up to nurse, and this was, it felt like maybe like an hour after my C-section, but it could have been sooner, could have been a little later because that part's a little bit fuzzy. But they tried to sit me up because they wanted the babies to be able to nurse, and they do it like really fast after they're born. And I couldn't sit up because I got super sick, and that apparently is common with the C-section and the medicine that they give you in the anesthesia. But I ended up, I guess, losing more blood than normal, and so it made me really, really nauseous. So any sort of sitting up at all, I was super nauseous. So for me in the hospital, I was like completely laying flat, and they had to like lay the babies on top of me, and I have a picture that I will try to show you. But they had to lay the babies on top of me, and then I had two nurses on either side of me like putting my nipple in the baby's mouth and trying to get the babies to latch and trying to get the babies to nurse. So you really can't be shy in this process, and by now if you're pregnant, you've gotten over the whole shy factor anyway. That is one thing I will say for visitors, especially with twins because you've got both boobs out, but after having a baby, like having visitors in the room, you're nursing. If you're going to nurse, obviously, your boobs are just out there, and so it's kind of like hard to have visitors when you're trying to learn how to nurse. So I will say, you know, keep that in mind, because that's something I didn't think about, but it was COVID, so we just had my husband in there. But he did say it was like weird to see these nurses just like working me like a puppet because I was just leaned back. I couldn't even like keep my eyes open. I was so sick. And so they were trying to help the babies latch. The point of that is to try to teach the babies how to nurse right away. And there's actually not milk at first. So there's just a teensy bit of something that comes out called colostrum. And I guess it's milk, but it's really like sticky stuff before the milk. You produce colostrum and that's what the babies eat. And it's like the smallest amount, but that's all they need because they're teeny tiny babies. So my friend is a nurse and she actually was our nurse one of the days, I think actually 2 of the days that I was in the hospital, which was fantastic because she was able to explain things to me that I, wouldn't have known to ask them, but that she knew I would be interested in knowing. So she explained to me the whole colostrum thing, and she was telling me that I was actually producing quite a bit of colostrum. So that made me happy, and she had predicted that I should be able to breastfeed just fine and my milk should come in just fine because I was producing a lot of colostrum. But at the time, like that kind of registered, but it didn't all the way register. Now, after the fact, I really appreciate that information. So, don't be afraid to ask your nurse questions like, is this normal? Also, don't do the reverse. Like, if you're not producing a lot up front or whatever, don't freak yourself out and get stressed out. Like, your body knows what to do. And that is one thing that I will say I truly believe in now. Like, my body knew how much to produce and how much the babies needed. And I will get more into that in a second. My babies did not latch great right away. Everett did, my boy. He latched really good. It was really cute. He latched like right away. But Amelia had a harder time, and we know now that she had really bad reflux and they both had their tongue ties clipped. And so Everett had a hard time latching a bottle and she had a hard time latching my nipple, but did fine on the bottle. Now they're both fine. And I also think a lot of the latching has to do with them needing to learn how to do it and be big enough to have the muscles to do it. Like when they're teeny tiny, my babies were like 6.5 pounds each. So when they're that small, I truly think that maybe they just need to get a little bit bigger. So they try to get them to latch. They try to get them to eat the colostrum. And they also hand express the colostrum out so that you can feed it to the baby like with your pinky. Like they had me feed it to the baby with my pinky or my thumb or whatever. They did it that way too because they're not latching. They can't like get the milk themselves. So that was like day 1, and then progressively each day in the hospital, we were there 4 days, they had us supplement donor breast milk because obviously my milk wasn't in yet. My babies were small. Amelia, my daughter, lost a bunch of weight, which is normal too. It's normal for them to lose weight, but I guess she lost like more than normal, so they wanted to give her milk. So they had us syringe feed her donor breast milk. This was the syringe that they had us use. They like just had the donor milk in something like this, and then you got it in here, and then they sent us home. Well, in the hospital we used this, which is like a little tube, like the teeniest, tiniest little tube that, I'll see if it'll focus. It's like the tiniest little tube that you clip to the end of the syringe. Sorry, I'm going to be like in and out of focus because I'm trying to show you this stuff. But it clips to the syringe, and then as the baby is latched to your nipple, they would put the little end of it in the baby's mouth, and as they're sucking, we would feed them the donor milk that way to try to get them to realize if you're nursing and if you're sucking like the nipple, then you're getting milk. And that is how we fed them most of the time. And we used donor breast milk because they didn't know if my breast milk was going to come in soon enough, and they wanted the babies to gain weight. It actually like makes me want to tear up seeing this because it's so crazy that this is how we fed our little baby. And we weren't even in the NICU. Like that was just a very rare, like a very small case of underweight baby. So while we were doing all of that, feeding the babies with the tube feeding, the colostrum, I was also pumping to try to get my milk to come in. So in the hospital, at least our hospital, they had a hospital grade pump. I think that's pretty standard with most hospitals. If you end up doing a hospital tour, of course, ask if they have that. Otherwise, you can bring your own pump. I think they had me pump like, it was a lot, like maybe 4 times a day, maybe more. Like they had me pump a lot to try to get the milk to come in. And one thing I really regret doing is on day 4, we were going home that night. No, we went home that day. So on day 3, we were going to be going home the next day. And with twins, apparently it's very common that your milk doesn't come in or you don't produce enough to be able to feed 2 babies. And so they want you to trial formula while you're there so that you know what you're going to be feeding your baby when you get home. If your milk doesn't come in or if you're not producing enough, they want to just set you up for success and make sure that your baby's going to be fed. I get that. That's their job. Their job is to make sure that the baby is being taken care of. And so for me, they were like kind of hounding me like, hey, what are you going to do if, like, you know, your milk's not coming in yet? How are you going to feed the baby? Are you going to buy more breast milk? You know, it's really expensive. Are you going to do formula? Like, what are you going to do? And I was just like, well, I guess if my milk doesn't come in, I'll try formula. You know, like I didn't really know what else to do. It was COVID, so I had wanted to do donor breast milk, but with COVID going on, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's like the safest right now. I probably shouldn't. Formula's probably safer. And so I agreed to trial some formula at the hospital on the 3rd night, and we were going home that next morning. And so I did do 1 bottle for the babies of formula, and they both threw it all up. They spit it all up. They were crying. They were so uncomfortable. Now I know that Amelia has a dairy intolerance, soy, egg, and nuts too, but dairy for sure. Everett has reflux really bad. He was called a happy spitter, so he just was a spitter upper anyway. But on top of all of that, I also think that they were teeny tiny babies and my body knew how much they needed, and I was like force feeding them. I'm a first-time mom and this is my first go around. I could be wrong, but like my mother's intuition and like knowing my babies now and how they react, I do feel like maybe the formula was just too much for them at that time, because my milk literally came in the next day. I was so mad at myself that I gave them formula, and I am not dissing formula fed babies at all. I think it works wonderful for some people, but knowing now that my daughter was allergic to dairy at the time, you know, I just think that it caused her to be uncomfortable when she didn't need to be. And so that's why I'm kicking myself, is because I wish I wouldn't have put her through that, and I would have like gave it 1 more day, which my sister did warn me. She was like, they kind of try to push you around when you're a first-time mom, and at the time I didn't understand what that meant because I never had a baby, and they didn't allow visitors, so she wasn't there. Like if she was in the room when they said that, she probably would have spoke up or said something, but you know, we're there by ourselves and we're just trying to do the best for our babies, and someone's telling me my baby needs to eat, and so I'm like, okay. Now, sorry, I'm totally rambling, but I just want you to know, like, use your mother's intuition, and if you are like hardcore, I just want to breastfeed, you know, I think you can afford to wait and see if your milk comes in. But at the same time, I know where the nurses are coming from, and I know that they needed to make sure that we had a plan in place in case it didn't happen. So it's okay. It is what it is. My babies are fine now, but I I just wanted to mention that little part that did happen to us. We had to give formula for one day, and then after that, my milk came in and I was so excited. It's hilarious now how excited I was to get the smallest amount of breast milk. This is the little tube that they used for me to pump into, and it was like not even, it was like 5 milliliters. I got like 5 milliliters out the first time I ever pumped, and I was so excited. I'm like, look, I got so much milk out. But it's just this weird, proud moment when you're like, yes, I did it. I'm feeding my child. Yeah, that was the first time ever I got breast milk out. I was so excited, and then I knew my milk came in and I didn't need to continue trying that formula that made the baby spit up and cry all night long. That made me super happy. And so we packed up, took him home, and I started tandem feeding from there. So from the very beginning, I did tandem feeding. And like I said, when you're in the hospital, the nurses are there to help you, which is fantastic and amazing. So they put both babies on you at the same time, and they help them latch, and you feed them both at the same time. So I did that for the first probably 3 months. I had the big Twinsy Boppy Pillow. This is a normal Boppy. The Twinsy is like 2 of these, and it has a middle, obviously, because it's 2, and the middle comes up and it makes a support for your back, and then it clips in the front. I loved my Twinsy pillow. I already actually got rid of it because I stopped tandem feeding around 3 months, so I don't need it as much now, but it was fantastic because it sits up really high, and so the babies have a lot of support. And in the beginning of nursing, they're so tiny that you kind of have to like crouch over to help them latch, and it really kills your back. And so the big, huge Twinsy pillow was amazing for that. They also have the My Breast Friend pillow, but that one is small like the regular Boppy. So I loved the Twinsy, and I would football hold the baby. So you can look up like what a football hold is, but it's basically where the head is by your nipple and then the body goes behind you. And I would football hold both babies like this, and that's how they ate. So I did that very successfully from the beginning. Most of the time I had my husband or my mom here to help me get them in position or just bring me the other baby. I could do it by myself too. I would like put them in the Boppy lounger next to me, and then I could grab one baby up with one hand and get them in there. And then I could hold one baby while the other was still nursing and burp that baby and set it down or whatever when they were really tiny like that. Once they got bigger and wiggly, it was much harder, and they were much more efficient at breastfeeding. So in the beginning, they're nursing for like 30 minutes or longer because they can't get the milk out as fast. You're spending a lot of time trying to help them latch or whatever. If, you know, they were like my kids and they needed some more help like Amelia did. And so, yeah, the tandem feeding really saved a lot of time with twins in the beginning. But once they got efficient at nursing and they could nurse in like 15 minutes, I was okay separating the two and nursing one baby by themselves and then nursing the other baby. So that's why I stopped tandem feeding, because they got super wiggly. I would be trying to burp one and the other one was still trying to eat, and then my babies both also spit up so much that one would be like spitting up all over me while the other one was still eating, or they're both spitting up on me. And then Amelia had her GERD issues, so she was like arching and in a lot of pain as we were working through no dairy and soy and cutting things out. So I ended up going to feeding them by themselves, and I honestly like that better. I don't know, I go back and forth, but even in the beginning I may have liked just nursing them separately, because it's just like more time spent with the baby. Like no matter how busy I get, no matter how much I'm like trying to keep them entertained so I can clean the house or work or do whatever, I have to sit down and nurse my baby and look at them and kiss them and hug them and talk to them and look in their eyes and just spend that quality time with them by nursing them. So I like that I get to do that now with each baby, because with twins you oftentimes, or I oftentimes, feel a little bit guilty that I'm not spending enough time with one baby. If one's extra fussy that day and I'm holding that baby all the time, the good baby is like happy, so I'm not holding him as much. So it just helped me feel better and spend quality time with each of the twins on their own. However, I have seen a lot of twin moms continue to tandem feed their babies until they're like a year old or more. Okay, so along with tandem feeding the babies, in the beginning, Amelia had to also do a supplemented pumped bottle because she needed to gain more weight. Like I said, she had lost a lot of weight and she needed to gain more weight. So they were having me supplement her like 2 or 3 bottles a day of pumped breast milk after her feeding. So I was nursing the babies and then also pumping afterwards to give Amelia a bottle. It was a lot of work, and I mean, props to you moms that have to pump all the time, because I absolutely hate pumping. I think probably because of that reason, because I was pumping so much in the beginning, it ended up being so painful, but that's what I was doing. They also say if you pump after each feeding, then you will teach your body that it needs to produce more breast milk. And so I did that as well to try to increase my breast milk, because I was really worried about not producing enough to feed twins. So after every feeding, I would pump. So I just got really burnt out on that. But feeding 2 babies and then also pumping after, it was a lot of work, and it is a lot on your nipples. So that brings me to my next thing. You need a lot of nipple care because it hurt. I would ask like, hey, when do your nipples just stop hurting? And my friends would be like, I don't remember them hurting that bad, but they had to have. I think they did. They just forgot, because now like they're really tough. I don't even know if like somebody brushes up against me because yeah, they're fine now, but it was probably a good 2 months where they would hurt so bad, especially because babies like to cluster feed in the beginning, and that also teaches your body to produce more milk and different levels of nutrition that they need. So they will cluster feed. Well, I had 2 babies, so they would cluster feed, like maybe one would be cluster feeding 1 week and then the next week the next one would. So I just did not get a good break, and so my nipples were hurting so bad. I had to get like the little cooling pads that I would put in the freezer and put those on my nipples. I got prescription like lanolin cream, but prescription grade. I had Nipple Shields, and I will show all of this stuff in the next video. I had Nipple Shields. I had just so many things. There would be some sessions where I was like, I can't do it. I need a break. So I would have my husband give them a bottle so I could like let my nipples rest a little bit. It was rough, but if you can make it past that rough patch of it hurting so bad, it does get better. But I can see where moms are like, no, I can't do it, because you're already so tired, so sleep deprived, you're giving so much to your baby, and then now you're recovering from birth, and then you're also having these insane sore nipples. You're having to nurse the babies, teach them how to latch. I also think that it hurt more because the babies were learning how to latch still, and that's what they say, is that if they're not latched right, then your nipples may hurt, and if it hurts, then they're not latching correctly. Well, we went to like 3 or 4 lactation consultant meetings, and I truly think that my daughter, who was the one that wasn't latching well, I truly think that she just needed to get older and learn how to do it, because after a few months, she did get way better and now she's totally fine. But it was a struggle in the beginning. And so I can totally see where moms are like, there's no way, I can't do it. And if that's you, that's fine. I mean, you're already sacrificing a lot for your baby. So if you can't do it, you can't do it. But if you can, if you can hang in there, it does get better, but it might be like 2 months. So yes, make sure that you get all of the gel cooling packs and take care of your poor little nipples, because they are going to be put through the ringer. Okay, so we went through how the experience was in the hospital, taking them home and tandem feeding them, separating feeding them, and all the pain that you're gonna go through in the beginning. So now I will just give you a little overview of what we're doing today. They are almost 11 months old, and today they still feed like every 3 hours. Oh, that is one thing that I forgot to mention, is that your babies are going to eat like every 2.5 to 3 hours. And so now my babies still do eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. They say that breastfed babies go through the breast milk quicker, like it goes through their body faster, and so they eat more often than formula fed babies. And so some breastfed babies can go like 4 hours between feeding. Mine don't do that ever. They are starving at like the 3-hour mark. So I still feed them every 3 hours, but they have been cutting down on their night feedings. So they only eat at 10 p.m. and then at 5 a.m. So they don't eat every 3 hours at night now. That just ended like a month or 2 ago, but I know some people are able to do that at like 5 or 6 months. It just kind of depends on your baby and your sleep training and what you choose to do. The few times that I have been like, oh, you know, brother woke up, I'm gonna feed him and I'm not gonna disturb sister, I go back to bed, and then like 30 minutes later sister was up. So I just, if one was ready to eat, I would feed the other one. And so that's what they recommended to me with twins. That's what I recommend, because that's what worked for us. But now they don't have to eat all night long, which is amazing. When they turn a year old, we are going to try to start weaning them. It's going to be a little difficult because my kids can't have cow's milk, and they can't have soy milk, and they can't have almond milk. So I have to talk to the GI doctor and talk to the pediatrician and figure out like what I need to supplement them with, if anything at all. But my goal is to start weaning them after a year, because then they can start to have more solids like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, good portions, to where we can start weaning them off of nursing so much. And so that is where we are at now. It has been a crazy journey. I can't even believe that I've made it this far. It's just insane. Now if I pump at night and in the morning. I'm so bad at it though, because I hate pumping. I don't know why. So I recommend, if you want time off, to pump, because with me, I haven't pumped as much, and so I don't have a whole lot of stored breast milk for my kids. And so if I ever want to like take a day off, you know, to go run errands or whatever, not even a day, like one feeding off, I just don't have a whole lot of milk to do that. And luckily with work, I can schedule my appointments around my kids' feedings, and so that's what I've done for a very long time. So I just really didn't have to pump very much, but it's kind of hard, because even just to like go get my hair done or go get my nails done, I stress out about not having a lot of stored milk for those occasions. So if you can, I would recommend pumping, but it's not the end of the world if you can't, because if you have the time to spend with your baby, then only this one time in our lives that we get to do it. I am exhausted. but I'm also very, very thankful that I've been able to last this long and breastfeed them, and that my milk came in and I have enough for both of the babies. That is all I got for you. That is it for this video on breastfeeding. I hope that I did not ramble too much and that I gave some useful information to you. If you have any questions, like I said, feel free to comment down below, and then I will also link the next video down below for you if you are interested in seeing all the fun things that go along with breastfeeding that us mamas have to buy. So thank you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful day. See you later.